Welcome to DAExMachiNation. Join us as we explore the mysteries of this world. Cryptids, monsters, macabre tales, and horror stories abound. Could they be true? Are monsters real?
Good evening, folks, and thank you all for joining us on another edition of DAExMachiNation. We got a pretty full house tonight. We're missing Steve, but I think he's working. We got Carrie Pocket Doc Davis coming to us from the rather chilly state of Colorado, and I'm going to say Red instead of Jed. Jed Rains, old Red, kind of baying at us from South Crackalacky. Boys, how you guys doing tonight?
Music's still playing.
Music's still playing. We shouldn't have any music playing. Have you got your YouTube video up still? If you've got YouTube up as well as the show, Doc, you probably got to mute YouTube.
I did. It's weird. Okay.
I don't know what's going on.
Well, maybe my computer is being weird, but
that's why I had to back out when we were backstage. I can still see us moving on the other side, but my screen, the countdown froze.
It's been weird. It's a satellite. It's that damn satellite.
Damn satellites.
I am rolling.
Right. Well, boys, I'm glad you guys are here tonight. I think tonight's going to be a good one. We've talked about this subject a few times, but I'm not specifically just talking about missing 411 the hunters. That's not the only examples of hunters that have gone missing, and some of them have gone missing under some pretty bizarre circumstances. And I think it's something that bears looking into.
I think it's something bears ain't got nothing to do with.
I don't think it's bears. Yeah. Unless it's the big two-legged bears that leave footprints instead of paw prints.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just Ryan says, "Hey Doc, that hurricane lamp in the background is cool."
That's a replica, man. I got off Amazon with this LED bulb. Looks like it's a flame, but I do have. That. Thank you. I've got like 6 hurricane lamps from the 1800s. A couple of them I actually had to rebuild all the guts, and one of them's one of my grandma's from like the 19-teens. So
I got 3 or 4 of them that my mother-in-law gave to my wife, and we've used them in the last few years when we'd get power go off.
Yeah,
old technology still works, man.
Hey, good old lamp oil, nothing beats it, man.
Tell you though, using one of them hurricane lamps, you don't grab the globe. You learn that pretty quick.
That's like you don't grab a cast iron skillet by the handle unless you got a leather cover over it.
Yeah, I done learned that lesson for sure. When I was a kid, I'm like, you hear that little sizzle sound as your fingertips touch that globe?
Yeah.
That is what we refer to as a self-correcting problem.
It don't take you long to feel how warm it is, does it?
Like the old joke about the guy at the blacksmith shop that picks up the horseshoe and then throws it down. Blacksmith says, "Burnt you did?" And he goes, "Nope, just don't take me long to look at a horseshoe."
Yes, sir. Man.
Harold says, "Jed, is that a nickname?"
I was in the middle. I'll let you answer because I was in the middle of typing it up, but you answer that.
Well, these fellers have characters based on them in a lot of my books, and one of them is named Jed Rains. The other is Obadiah Doc, quote unquote Doc Davis. They're ancestors, if you will, from the 1860s. Because I first introduced those characters in the Dark Frontiers books. But if you haven't read any of the books, I don't want to give away too much because you're missing out. And there's something else I wanted to share before we really jumped into this. Is we were pretty excited the other night when we announced that Dark Frontiers, the new book, had gone to #1 in its category. It is now still a #1 bestseller in Western horror fiction, and it is still climbing. It's overall ranked in Kindle of 2,600. When it hit #1, it was about 7,500. So it's still climbing the charts. It's #1 in Western horror, #5 in historical mystery, and #18 in westerns. Just westerns.
That's pretty damn awesome.
I'm pretty excited. And it's got like 57 reviews, which is huge for a book that's only been out, just been out a week today.
Hey, can't keep a good book down.
Nope. If y'all ain't
All
got it,
about
you
Nathan's
should.
climbing.
Yeah, if y'all ain't got it, you should. I got mine sitting upstairs. It came in a couple days ago, so y'all will get them.
Wyatt,
Worth,
thank you, brother. I really appreciate that, man.
worth every penny.
Yep.
And it's brought the other Dark Frontiers along with it. They're all fairly high in the ratings now.
Good.
Not as high as the newest one, but it's caused sales to spike in the other Dark Frontiers books. So I'm
Good.
pretty excited about that. I want to thank each and every one of you guys for making that possible. It's huge, and it's a tremendous honor, and I'm really thrilled that you guys are enjoying this book so much that it's continued to climb in the ratings, and I hope it stays there for a good long time.
Well, me too. You know what that means, though? It means you just got to write more of them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the next one that's coming out is going to be a Lakeview Man book. It's called Lakeview Man: Dead of Winter, and I'm about halfway done with it already. And Robbie's book is coming along. He's actually about 1,000 words farther along than I am. I'm at about 36,000 words done in the book. Took today completely off. I wasn't feeling great, so I just kind of slept in and relaxed a little bit. Didn't do any writing today. But I'm feeling quite a bit better. Took a nap and took some medicines. I feel a little bit better, and I'm probably going to do some writing after the show. But Robbie's a little over 37,000 words, and his book is really starting to kick it in the ass. I mean, he's doing really good.
Yeah, I'm liking it. Good stuff.
Appreciate it.
Kenji says, so Gen 2 NVG soon? If I can afford it, yeah, I want a set. I really want a set pretty bad. If nothing else, I'm going to get, there's a plug-in for your phone that plugs in the USB port of your phone, and it sticks out about this far. No, I've got a couple of them, but his are for iPhone. But they make them for Android as well, and I want to get one of those and plug it in, then I can use the phone as night vision. There's my the green screen's killing it. I was going to show off my Bigfoot phone case, but the green screen doesn't like it. The rain says, "Stop pushing the beard up." Is she talking to you or me, Robbie?
Do what now?
Taylor said, "Stop pushing the beard up."
Oh, she's talking to me. She can't stand it when I do this.
I do that all the time too.
Yeah, she's like, Dad, quit that.
I do this.
I do that a lot, but if I start doing this and she's around, she's like, stop. So that's her. And I didn't realize I was doing it. Sorry, Tay.
It's a nervous habit. I think we all do it.
Yeah, I think you're probably right about that.
Most of the time when I do it when I'm around her, I'm doing it just to aggravate her. But I really was. I just wasn't paying attention to it that time.
I need to go see my barber and see if he can tame this tumbleweed on my face. I'm not the best at trimming, with the beard trimmer. I tend to take hunks out of it, so I'm not very good at it. I mean, I can maintain it, but actually just like lining it up, I'm not very good at that.
Yeah, I don't even trust a damn guide anymore. Last time I used a guide, I was trimming up the middle, ended up giving myself a damn Mobius when the guide collapsed.
That's no bueno.
No.
I see the Gray Eagle Girls Club's in effect tonight.
Oh, Lord.
Well, says, DA, what about the night vision that is a screen that mounts to your scope? Yeah, I'd love to have something like that. But, I'd also like to have something that is either like Doc's it's like mounted to his head, his helmet, so I can keep my hands free. I just want to find something that's easy to use and not going to break the bank.
True.
All righty. Well, let's talk a little bit about some of these missing hunters. I think the one that always strikes me the most is it's a story out of the Georgia mountains, and I can't remember what county it was in, but there was a group of hunters went hunting, and they scattered along this ridge on a deer lease. And the guy that was the farthest out on the lease, they were scattered. I think it was about half a mile apart down this ridge. And the guy that was the farthest out, the last one on the end, they'd all hunted that area numerous times. And once they all got to their deer stands, they were waiting for sunrise to start hunting. And the guy that, like I said, is the farthest out on that very end of that finger ridge, they heard him just open fire, just start firing as fast as he could. And they didn't know what the hell was going on. So they climbed down out of their deer stands and went trucking down that way. And then before they could get there, it was just dead quiet. When they got there, they found his rifle had been busted around the base of a tree, and they never found a trace of him, and his deer stand had been pulled down out of the tree. That's not a bear. Bears don't snap rifles backwards around trees, but they never found a trace of the guy. And to me, that's one that says, you know, Bambi's dad didn't pull his ass out of that tree, and it damn sure wasn't a bear.
Mm-mm. Especially since he just up and disappeared too.
Right, and it's an area he knew well. He was well armed. He'd hunted the area numerous times. It was a deer lease they'd been hunting for years, and they've never found a trace of the guy.
So he's just going like a fart in the wind, just nothing,
Right.
Not a trace. How many years ago was this?
What?
How many years ago was that?
I believe when I first read the report was probably 2016, 2017, somewhere around there. But I think it was a few years old at the time. So I think it happened in the 20 teens. I'd have to find the actual report again. I've been trying to hunt it up online and haven't found the report again. But I remember reading it at the time. I was like, God dang, what got that guy? But
you remember what part of Georgia it was in?
It was up in the mountains. So I think it was in the northern part of the state.
That's probably around the area that I've told you the story where me and Jessica had our, because that was up in the mountains. That was like,
If I remember correctly, the mountains in Georgia are only in the northern part of the state.
Yeah, we could see North Carolina from where we were at. And
so probably same area you were at.
Yeah. And I'm going to tell you that first time was great. I mean, there were parts of it that were kind of spooky, but that second one, and I still, Jessica thinks it was Bigfoot, but I don't think that was Bigfoot that second time. I think it was a dog man.
Well, I can't say nobody saw anything. They didn't even hear growls. They heard that guy, shooting with everything he had, and then by the time they got to him, the rifle was busted and he was gone, and the deer stand had been yanked down. But they didn't find tracks. They didn't find traces of the guy. Dogs wouldn't track. They went in to try to look for the guy, and search and rescue found nothing. And here's one that's not involved hunters. The old boys on Old Line Cryptids were talking about this last night. Jeff Yarrington and the boys, they were talking. This one I hadn't heard of, and I need to get a hold of Jeff and see if he can get me a copy of this report. But they were talking about it. It was a survey crew that was out in the woods, and I believe he said it was in North Carolina. But this survey crew was out, and they were scattered about every 50 yards surveying this section of land. And one guy on the very end just went missing. They couldn't stop reporting in, so they go looking for the guy. And there's a barbed wire fence not far from where he was last seen, where he was supposed to be. They found his equipment, no trace of him. They found one of his boots hung on the barbed wire fence, and then same thing. They couldn't track him, found nothing. What it sounded like is something grabbed him and went up a tree. Dogs wouldn't track, and 2 years later, hikers found the other boot, like 2-3 miles away.
Good Lord!
So if it's a guy that just wandered off, who loses a boot and goes wandering off in the woods?
Yeah, you don't.
Yeah, they were talking about that account last night. I'm like, God dang, that was pretty freaking creepy.
But what? Okay, both of those stories have one thing in common, and it was the person on the end of the line is the one that got attacked. What does that tell you?
They were picking off the ones that were, didn't have, people on either side of them.
Which
Hillary says, DA, was it the case of 20-year-old Christopher Tompkins in Georgia? It was in the David Paulides book. I think it was, but I remember reading the incident online, not in Paulides' book. But I think that sounds about right. I think that was the name of it. But yeah, they picked off the straggler on the end.
Yeah, but that denotes intelligence and thinking and strategies, tactical awareness. Because why would you pick why would a wild animal just randomly pick somebody on the outside? I mean, that's intelligence.
The guy was on too.
But
Darren Frank says there was 2 hunters here in Alabama that were found stuffed into a hollow tree.
What?
Yeah. Uh, Darren, if you could you send me a link on that?
Yeah. I
Send
mean,
that to DA Roberts at DARoberts.net. I'd like to read that account.
that doesn't sound pleasant.
No.
well,
Do
there
not.
was a gentleman. I remember reading this story. He was hunting with family and in an area that they all know, and he was basically kind of in like the middle. Everybody was in areas around him, hundreds of yards away and everything. This guy was like 82 years old. This was up in the Adirondacks, up
I've
in
never heard about that.
upstate New York. It was in, I think they
Wasn't
said
he
it
like
was
a World War II Army Ranger?
2015. I don't know. He was 82 in 2015. So, but they found his rifle, they found his pack, everything, all his clothes were there, all of his stuff was there, all his gear was there, left his rifle and everything, missing without a trace. He's still missing to this day. And that's one of the things that I remember hearing about that. And they said he never fired his weapon, no, his rifle, anything like that. But boom, fart in the wind, gone.
I remember reading about that one, and that was a guy that had hunted that same area
Yeah,
for years.
It was his whole little family group, friend group, whatever, and they would all go hunting together. And he was in his stand, that he always had, and gone.
There was a guy who was hunting down near Raton, New Mexico, up in the mountains. Had hunted the area for more than a decade. Had been this is not a new area. They had an established camp that they went to every year. Well, he had a bad leg. He had to have surgery on his foot or on his knee, one of the two. But he had a bad leg, and he said, "I'm not going to be able to hike way back in the mountains like I normally do." So his buddies left camp to go where they normally hiked, and he was going to hunt near the camp. And he hiked about 100 yards from the camp, and set up in a stand of trees. And he went missing, and they never found hide nor hair of him. And again, that was a guy that could not have hiked out because of the leg, and two, had hunted that area for like 10 plus years. And he just, to borrow a phrase from Doc, gone like a fart in the wind. I've got a theory though, and see if this jibes with you fellers. I've talked to a lot of deer hunters over the years that have said, I saw this and I don't know what it was, and they talked about their Bigfoot sighting. And this is not just one or two times. I've probably talked to 30 guys over the last 25 years that have had a similar experience. But I had this thing in the crosshairs of my scope, and it looked too human, so I didn't take the shot. I think the missing 411s, the missing hunters, took the shot.
Well, like I said, we've
and
talked.
I kind of get the feeling that now that we've mentioned that, I think if we'd have took a shot Moon Valley the other night, boys, we might have been missing 411s.
No, hell no, with the no. I mean,
yeah, because we know there were at least 4 or 5 of those things that we could see.
Bro, at least. I mean, because Robbie and I heard them splashing around out there.
We heard them cross the river in 2 or 3 different points.
Yeah,
you had at least three on thermal in the direction that Robbie and I were walking. I think if any one of us had taken a shot, we had played hell getting out of that valley.
Yeah, 125 million%, sir. Yeah, that was I do, and that's a good as Isabel says, that the hypothesis is sound. That's a good hypothesis, man, because if you take a shot at one, they might have thought you as a threat, but now they know that
you have made yourself an identifiable threat.
You skylined yourself, son.
Yep.
So,
You've just done escalated the situation.
Correct.
Woo. You done crapped in your mama's bread pan.
Yeah, dude, I'm gonna tell you, I still think about that, up in Moon Valley, and it gives me chills, man. It really does.
Well, yeah, I talked to my buddy Wes. My friend who's Navajo, and we were talking about the cannibals in Moon Valley, and he said he said, and you think it was going on for decades down there? I said, we're pretty much certain it was going on for decades, but only 2 guys took the fall for it. And he said, well, I'm going to warn you, you probably don't want to ever camp down there again. And I said, why? He said, once that kind of evil takes a hold on a place, it attracts lots of other evil to it. And that night, I think we were in the presence of something dark.
Well,
Yeah. no doubt in my mind.
I'm gonna tell you, it was definitely an eye opener, and you know what? Yeah, no night sounds, things like that. But a lot of people, let's be honest. I mean, if they're sitting here if they're a hunter and they're looking for a deer, they might not be paying attention to anything else around them other than the fact that they're looking for a deer.
Or
You know?
in like my case, Doc, when I got a deer and I know it was taken. Remember I told you that story when I was like 15, I shot a 12 point and it got dragged off, got taken. If I had, and I know I was an impulsive teenager, if I had seen that thing taking my deer, I'd have took a shot at it.
Right, because you were 15 and you're like, hey, that's my freaking deer.
Yes, that's mine.
Yep.
That's my freaking deer. Yeah, I mean,
and I might have gone missing with it. Had I seen it grabbing my deer, I know me. Hell, I'd be tempted to now. I'm like, hey, asshole, that's mine.
Yeah, exactly.
I work for that. Well, you go get your own.
Yeah. That's kind of terrifying. But I mean, you think about it. These guys out hunting, they're looking for deer, and they, like I said, they may not be paying much attention to anything else around around them, and so they get tunnel vision. They get mud sucked in there to the deer and not anything else out of the ordinary. But I don't know. I just remember that night we was there. There was no sounds whatsoever, just like out at Joe Bald, just like out at Combs Ferry. Nothing.
And that's the same way it was the very first time that I was with Jessica in Georgia. When but we'd been there for 30 minutes to an hour probably before it ever happened. It was like being at a concert, and all of a sudden everything just like you unplug a jukebox, and everything went quiet. That's more unnerving than getting out and everything already being quiet. It's when everything's just going nuts, and all of a sudden it just stops for no known reason. You talk about short curlies.
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah, I mean, and it's just like some of the areas I go through. I go through Raton, New Mexico a lot. I go through the Mogollon Rim a couple of times a year. So,
hey, there are places up in Raton Pass. I wouldn't want to be on the side of the road changing a tire.
No, sir.
Especially at night.
No, sir. That is down south of Trinidad, between Trinidad and Raton. Brother, that's some rugged territory.
That is some woolly territory.
Woof.
And if you were to get off the road, there's a good chance in some of those places you might not find it again.
Yeah, you might be poop. Yeah. Right there with you on that. Yeah, that's the reason I plan my gas and pee stops in populated areas.
What do you say, Doc? Ate by a wolf and crapped over a cliff?
That's the place for it to happen too.
Correct. That is correct.
There's some spots in that pass where you're looking down going, Lord.
Man. Yeah, you ain't wrong.
Like going up Wolf Creek.
Yeah.
There are some butt puckering sections of highway up Wolf Creek.
Yeah. Wolf Creek
Thank
Pass.
you, Larry. Appreciate it.
Yeah, Wolf Creek Pass is something, man. And then like out there between Heber and Payson, Arizona, brother, up in the Mogollon Rim area, that's some woolly country. Big time. Big time.
We went to some pretty woolly country here in Missouri.
Oh, you ain't wrong. You ain't wrong.
Even though it was broad daylight when we were in Combs Ferry, it was still just absolutely dead quiet.
Yeah. You gotta.
Well, and that's because Doc looked at me. I think it was right when we got to Combs Ferry. Doc looked at me. He goes, and I said, "What?" He goes, "Exactly, nothing."
Yeah.
He knew as much as a bird sound.
Yeah. Yeah, there was nothing there, man. Well, there was no sounds there. There was something there, but there wasn't any animal sounds. I'll say that.
Hey, Kevin, thank you, brother.
It was quite creepy.
But when you look into the missing 411, oh, Larry gifted a membership. Thank you, Larry. Gifted
Larry.
it 3D Happy membership. Way to go, 3D. Congrats, man. And Larry, thank you, dude. Appreciate it. But what was I saying? Oh,
Something about the missing 411.
yeah. When you look at the missing 411 hunters, some of them, there's just no rhyme or reason why they went missing. I mean, these were guys. Not only were they experienced outdoorsmen and familiar with the area, but they were armed. It's it's saying something when one of these predators is good enough to take out an armed, experienced outdoorsman
Right.
and leave no trace.
Yeah. Yeah, and not only that, not only did they leave no trace of the hunters, there's also no trace of what took them.
Right.
Which begs the question: how'd they get them out? Because if you're an experienced hunter, do you think that they are, if you're an experienced hunter, you'd think that people are decent at tracking an animal.
Rodney's got a good question here. He says, "Do you think they were aggressive or just checking you out?" I think they were just checking us out until the howl.
Sorry.
I think once Robbie put out that wolf howl, it changed. I mean, you could feel the change. We'd made, well, Doc did a really good owl cry. I'd done my tongue pop, and Robbie were you the one that did the whoop?
Yeah, I did a couple of whoops too.
Robbie does a really good whoop. We'd made a number of calls, and we'd gotten a little bit of reaction, but it wasn't like anything beyond just mild curiosity. But when Robbie let out that wolf howl, the volume went from 2 to like 14. I mean, things started getting real damn interesting real fast.
Yeah, it did. It wasn't 5 minutes later that I spotted the one out to the right and the two back in the woods that I thought was one, and then saw something bust out from behind it.
Hey, River, I've talked to a lot of guys who work the railroad here, Burlington Northern here in the U.S., and yes, they do have encounters, but no, they will not talk about them because they basically been threatened to lose their pensions if they talk about stuff like that. And even a relative of mine who was an injurer is like, "Look, I can tell you some stuff, but I can't tell you if you know what I mean." There's another good question.
Hey, DA, I'm having some connection issues. I'm gonna recycle or refresh my screen and bump back in. Okay.
Okay. I was going to say something else. Here he is. Any better?
Yeah.
It
was freezing up every couple of seconds, really bad. So, yeah. That's more gooder now.
Janine, I can't do the howl on microphone. It'll get all distorted. It won't sound good off his microphone. I'm sure it's probably got some kind of software in it that'll cut it out, and it won't sound that great.
Just Ryan said, hard to see in the thickens. My great grandpa was a guerrilla fighter in Southeast Asia in World War II. He said they'll grab and dispose of the last person in a Japanese army patrol, and they wouldn't even notice it. Well, we're like the special forces encounter up in Alaska. They said when they started tracking these huge tracks they found, that it was using the same techniques that they had been taught to try to throw them off the trail, like going through clearings, doubling back on its tracks. It only makes sense that the techniques that our rangers and our special forces are being taught are these things instinctively know.
That's interesting. You remember the guy I told you about that was my cadre in my tracking class? His call sign in Vietnam was Slapjack, and his job. And I swear, I think he was Mac Vesog, because his job, you tell me what you think, Doc. His job was to sneak up behind enemy patrols. The last person in line, he had us. This is why his call sign was Slapjack. He had a Slapjack called Blackjack. Bam! Knock him out and drag him back and have an intense conversation with him. Back to base. Exact same tactics we're just talking about here.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's something that
they would know to do stuff like that.
Well, I wonder if that's something that they have watched us do to each other and picked up on it.
Right. Well, I mean, think about it like this. If you're up in the hills and there's a crest, where do you find the game trail? Below the crest.
Mm-hmm.
Just where they teach us, the military crest, not the skyline yourself. So
don't walk where you can be silhouetted.
Exactly. There's definitely a good small unit tactics mindset. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah.
Steve Stepanek said, DA, would you ever go camping in the Superstition Mountains? Yeah, I wouldn't go alone. I would definitely take, these two idiots with me, and we'd probably outfit an entire expedition. But yes, I would definitely go to the Superstitions and go camp. But I tell you, I would be very leery about going into that valley they call the Headless Valley.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd go there or not.
I might watch it from a distance.
Yeah.
Doc would probably have a steel cable attached to my drag harness and have me staked out with a so I couldn't get
I'd have to put bells and an invisible fence up and a electric collar and everything on Robbie. Robbie's going out too far. Light him up.
Hit the button on the winch and drag him back in.
That's for sure, man. Good Lord. Whose job is it to Robbie wrangle tonight?
Everybody goes, not it.
Not it.
Last one to touch his nose.
Whoever's on fire guard has to watch Robbie.
Exactly. Who's got the trank gun and the stone collar? Yeah, man. It's scary that people go in these environments. And we've talked about this a lot on a lot of shows, unprepared. But not only that, but they think that they're the biggest, baddest critter out there. They think that they're going in there on two legs and they're the apex predator, and they don't consider that there's other things out there that are way more apexer than they are. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. We talked about that. What was it? Last show we talked about that, DA, where people they see. A lot of people just see themselves, like you just said, Doc, is, we're on the top of the food chain. We're up here. And they go into these situations, and then it's like these people that want to go out and Grizzly Mays or what's his name wants to go out there. I know what I'm doing. Don't worry about that. I know exactly what I'm doing.
No, absolutely.
A couple days later, he's about bare bowel movement.
Yeah, you can't be prepared for all situations. I mean, you can be
100%.
prepared for as many as you can, but just when you think you're prepared for everything, Mother Nature's got a way of showing you ain't. So we try to prepare for everything we possibly can prepare for, but there's always going to be that element of the unknown.
Yeah.
I mean,
and that's
you're not looking for Bigfoot, don't mean you ain't going to run into a bear.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, as prepared as we are when we go out, we're never fully prepared for everything. But there are people who go out that don't even prepare like we do, and that's the ones we're talking about.
Yeah, that's like those old boys up in the Cascades. Now, those guys had been out many times, but they failed to prepare for the weather. And weather is the first thing that can go south on you in any situation like that. I feel bad for them and their families, I really do. But had they been better prepared for the weather, they probably would have been fine. Like when Doc and Robbie were here, it was rainy, nasty, and chilly the whole time they were here. And then the day they leave, it got up to like almost 70 degrees and sunny.
But, the whole time I was there, even though it was rainy and chilly, I didn't get wet and I didn't get cold because I had the proper gear.
Kevin Bode had a pretty good point here. He said native people, the last person would walk backwards to watch their backs and watch for injured stragglers. They call that the ranger walk. The rangers teach that. As they're leaving an area, the last guy covers, and when he's out of ammo, he rotates, and the next guy in line pops back up, and so on and so forth. They refer to that as the ranger walk. When rangers are leaving an area, one guy is always watching their back.
Yeah.
Usually walking backwards, hanging on to the guy behind him, or the guy in front of him is hanging on to him. One of the two.
I couldn't catch it before it rolled up, but I'll let you two answer this. Kathy Steen wanted to know if I'm really as bad as we make fun of me being out there in the woods.
Yes.
Yeah.
Y'all weren't supposed to jump on it that quick. Good God.
Although this
I say
last
that
time
with all
out
the
in
love
Moon
in my heart.
Valley, it was really kind of me and Robbie both. Doc was like having to warn us because we was fixing to get cut off.
Yeah. No, and I thought, I was like, whoa, back up, stop.
Robbie and I got pretty extended. We were probably 50 yards from the rest of you guys and heading for where you'd seen these heat signatures.
Yeah, and as soon as I saw y'all moving forward, I went ahead and closed distance for y'all, so we'd at least have some sort of unit. And then I was like, all right, y'all need to stop and back up because those things are moving. So
Noah on a long gun watching Doc's back, and me and Robbie were up front trying to get a closer look.
But all that being said, I do listen when you say stop and come back, though.
you did indeed. Post haste, because I was extremely emphatic in my verbiage as to the gravity of the situation.
Yeah,
Robbie says 99% of people camping or hiking at night would run like hell if they heard the howl we heard near here.
Yeah.
True story.
Yeah. I even worked that in the book.
Which I think is a great real world tie-in too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hillary says only because they had a shot collar on you. I needed one for both of us.
True.
Oh,
Yeah.
he didn't even shot me that time.
Definitely making the medic sweat, that's for sure. So, other areas that hunters have gone missing in the U.S. We talked about a few of them. Where else? Talking about
Quite a few go missing up in Colorado.
Say again.
Been quite a few of them go missing up in Colorado.
True.
Johnny just texted me and said, at least I listen to Doc. But I don't listen to him.
I mean, all along the Rocky Mountains, there's hunters go missing every year. Hunters go missing in the Appalachians every year. Hell, there's hunters that go missing here in the Mark Twain. A lot of times it's just, simple error. Somebody not prepared for the weather. There was an old boy just 3 or 4 years ago went missing under mysterious circumstances up near the Missouri River. The official cause of death was exposure, but he, let's just say it's weird because one, it's still an open case and you can't Freedom of Information Act it. And two, they found his coat and his jacket laying up against a tree and didn't find him for 3 days. I don't know no deer hunter alive that will put his. They said he must have laid his rifle down to track a wounded animal. There ain't no hunter alive leaves their rifle behind when they're tracking a wounded animal.
No, there's actually been in 2023 a 79-year-old man went missing in the San Juan Mountains. Has been presumed dead. Hunter believed to be dead after vanishing in the Colorado mountains. That was September 13th of 2023. And then another hunter was lost. A 63-year-old hunter was reported missing in Colorado's San Luis Valley. He was last seen around September 7th of 2024. So like a year between those two, and close to the same area in the San Juans and the San Luis Valley. Lost without a trace, gone, see you bye. And these dudes were experienced hunters. That's the thing about it. These ain't no newbies. These are lifetime veterans of being out there hunting. Now, did they get complacent because of that? Maybe. Who knows? But either way, they're missing without a trace.
Yeah, but you would think that the search and rescue would have found some trace.
Correct. And when they say
when
missing,
you find zero trace, that's when I really take notice of the account, because search and rescue generally finds something. It
Correct.
might be where they bedded down. It might be discarded items. And every hunter in a hunter safety course is taught, if you're lost, put 3 rounds in the air. None of these were reported. In a lot of these the bizarre cases, that was not reported.
Nope. And these areas that these guys go hunting, in Colorado, just like Wyoming, we have units. They're numbered units that you hunt on. You put your tags in, you for that area. You put in for a draw in that area, and so there are. I mean, this is all Department of Wildlife and Conservation here, and so there's routes in and routes out that these guys take. So it's not like they're up there brush busting or scaling cliffs or any kind of Rambo shit like that. They're just they're go in, they go out, and this guy.
And search and rescue generally knows, almost down to the square mile of where to start searching.
Exactly.
Well, and and that's the thing when you got big states like Colorado, Wyoming, Montana, where hunting, and it's not like it is here in South Carolina where you just go.
Right.
There's places up there that you can go and fall off the side of a cliff and not stop till you
hit bottom.
Yeah, hit bottom about what, 3,000-4,000 feet down, Doc, if you're lucky.
Yeah.
So I mean, it has to be more controlled than it does in situations like it does here. But even then, you could say, okay, one way in, one way out, and that's good for the person. But that doesn't mean that whatever animals, be it Bigfoot, dogman, or bears, mountain lions, cougars, they don't have to adhere to that. So
Right.
Something comes in and grabs them and takes them out the other way. There might not even be a thought to look in this area. Oh, okay, well, this is the way in and the way out. So we're looking right around this area here where they're hunting. There might not even be a trace around that area because something may have grabbed them and took them out, 10, 15 miles away from where they're supposed to be.
Just a guy says, DA, I've heard the USPP has SWAT teams, but the USPP is the urban Leo brand of the NPS. Do we know if the LER rural branch has them? There's got to be contingency for rural tactical situations. Most counties have larger counties have access to a SWAT team, if not their own, and those guys will respond to rural situations. But I don't know about Park Service or things like that. I don't know of any special weapons and tactics units that any of these park services have.
I've never heard of the Park Service having like
but
a SWAT.
I do know that a lot of park rangers are former military.
Most of the time, I would think in a situation, because it's federal park or parks or federal land, they're going to call on, like FBI or some agency like that who has a tactical response team if they were in need of a situation like that. They don't have that. I mean, they do, but it's not like they're a large standing law enforcement agency, because I would think probably one out of every 7 or 8 is an actual certified law enforcement officer, and the rest of them are probably just like security type.
Well, basically park rangers, but not all park rangers are armed.
Right, exactly. Not all park rangers would have all the arrest authority and all that. They would just be like, I know it's different in Missouri than it is here. Like here, most of our security guards they're security guards. They don't have, some of them may have sled cards and say they have arrest powers, but you try to use that, and Rodney can tell you that it's not worth the paper it's printed on. Because you try to arrest somebody based on that, you're probably going to get fired from wherever you work at. It doesn't matter what they were doing. And I know, like I said, I know it's different in Missouri because you and I had that conversation. But I would think a lot of the Park Service is probably like that. They're just, you just got somebody who's out there on a part-time job that's just basically like a security guard that doesn't really know any better. And then, one in every 5 or 6 or so is actual, can do what needs to be done.
I know in Missouri, the state parks, you've got armed and unarmed park rangers. Most of them are unarmed. Some of them do have powers of arrest, and the game wardens tend to work with state park guys a lot. However, federal parks, those guys are all law enforcement. Those guys are all armed.
Well, I mean, you think about in LBL, they've got their own freaking police department basically inside the park.
Yeah.
right before or right as if you're on the bad side going into the good side, it's right there on the left, right before you go into the. Funny enough, it's in the bad side, which is funny, but it's federal. In the DA, in the federal.
Yeah. Just want to say a quick shout out to Angry Drunken German. He gifted 5 memberships. Looks like they went to Isabel, Nathan Finn, LS 420 Stoner, and Brenda Sinning, and Joseph Breyer.
Awesome.
Or Bierer, Bierer, Bierer.
Anyway,
thank you, man, and thank you guys for being members of the channel. Woo. But yeah, like Robbie, like you were saying, I mean, that's really one of the most interesting things about that is just how bizarre the circumstances are.
Yeah, and I think that's just an element that maybe gets overlooked. And we've talked this. This is nothing against Pilates, but he cherry picks what he wants to put in his report. How many more would be in that if you just kind of like knock down?
Well, Pilates all of his stories have to hit certain check marks.
Right. So how many more go by the wayside that they just don't fit his criteria? And obviously his criteria is so it fits in his book to fit his narrative, which is fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong. That's why I'm saying I'm not bagging on him or anything with this. But how many more out there are just like 1 or 2 ticks shy of making his box that are probably just exactly what we're talking about with missing 411.
Right.
Miss a box or 2.
And he doesn't report the ones who disappeared and then were found. Some of those disappeared under weird circumstances but were found quickly, still would have fit the criteria of being that bizarre of a disappearance. They were just found quick.
Yeah, I mean, because wasn't he saying that there's like upwards of 1,200 hunters a year that go missing or something like that? Now, a vast majority of those are found, whether they're found dead or alive, but there's still a certain amount that literally go missing without any, like just like the guys here in Colorado in 2023 and 2024 without a trace.
The scene in Codename Wild Hunt, Curse of the Wendigo, where Doc's snowmobile gets taken out.
Yes, he knows that scene very well.
You know that entire section of them, that whole incident was based on a real incident. There were 3 ice fishermen that went to a cabin that they'd gone to for years, went out ice fishing, never seen again.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Greg has a good question.
Up on the Upper Peninsula.
Greg House, why is the Park Service so secretive about the cases?
The Park Service relies on revenue from visitors.
Tourism, baby.
If the word gets out that people are going missing because they're being stalked by something like a Bigfoot or a dog man, or even aliens, whatever's stalking them, if word gets out that we're being on the menu, being hunted by these creatures in these national parks, tourism's going to dry up overnight.
What we say, DA, was $33 billion a year?
Something like that. Yeah, it's a multi-billion a year that the Park Service generates.
I'll be right back, fellas.
All right, Doc. Camo Dad says people disappear in the Adirondack Park as well. It's not just any one mountain range or any one area of the States. It happens every year. Like Doc was saying, what was it, like 12 or 1,700 hunters go missing a year?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
when you think about how big this country is, that's not a whole lot of people. But when you think about the number of people hunting, when you base that against the number of people who actually still hunt, that's a lot of people going missing every year.
Well,
and all over the world, absolutely.
But just like we talked about when we were talking about the number that's put out for missing persons over a year's time, that's only the people that get reported. Think about, like we said, the transient population, the ones that don't get reported because there ain't nobody to report them.
Right.
Just like I said, if you take there's probably 5,000-6,000 more. Well, maybe not that many. There's a lot more if you just look at them that, like I said, maybe 1 or 2 boxes that Pilates checks that they didn't hit that, or even like you said that they get found within they might meet every criteria, but they get found within 30 minutes or an hour or whatever, so they don't get put in there because they were found. But these people might still have been, grabbed up by something, and they're telling people that's what happened. They're like, oh, well, it's just shock. You're just imagining it because you're in shock right now.
Bobby Presnell said, request an Freedom of Information Act for missing people in federal parks. David Pilates tried that, and they said it was going to be like $2.8 million or something obscene like that for them to compile such a list. At first, they denied it even existed, and then they said in order for them to compile it and give it to them, it was going to be just this ridiculous amount of money. Yep. And I want to say thank you to LS42, LS420 Stoner for the super chat. Very much appreciated, my man. Thank you so much. Greg House says exactly, the lid would be blown off. I'm hoping Elon's going to ask why money is going to Bigfoot research and control. That would be interesting. I really wish that, since they're already declassifying the Kennedy files. I wish they'd declassify some of this stuff. They're declassifying more UFO stuff. Declassifying more UFO stuff. I really wish they would just make it public about Bigfoot. I really do.
Oh, hey, Lil Patty's got a good question. She said, off topic, have you heard anything else about the Amazon driver that got supposedly killed by dogs?
That was here in Missouri back in 2022, up near Lexington, Missouri. There was an Amazon driver was delivering packages. The folks that were there were not home, but the dogs were inside inside the fence. The driver was found, and I had it on good information from both the county coroner and the county sheriff that they had never seen a body that torn up in their career. One of the dogs was an English Mastiff, and having owned an English Mastiff, those are generally pretty laid-back, lazy dogs. But when they found the body, they made entrance to the house and killed the dogs inside the house. The dogs were not fighting. They weren't coming after the deputy. The deputy sheriff went in and killed the dogs inside the house. And that is still an open case. They will not release any more information about it. They said it was the dogs that the case was closed, but yet the case is still open, and they won't give out any more information.
And before anybody asks why, there's one and one reason only that case could still be open. You can't FOIA the case if it's still an open case. So,
yeah, and even if it was a closed case, they can still refuse your FOIA request.
Right.
It makes it harder to refuse it if the case is closed, though.
Yes.
The case is still open. It's a lot easier to fight it.
Exactly. If it had actually been the dogs that did it, they would have closed that case and released it. The necropsy of the dogs was never released because if the dogs had attacked and eaten that Amazon driver, there would have been human tissue in the dog's stomach, and the necropsy was never released. Had they had been able to prove that there was human tissue in the dog's stomach, they'd have just said, okay, it was the dogs and been done with it. They never did that.
And if I recall correctly, they said that there was canid DNA in his wounds, but they never isolated it
unknown canine DNA.
Right. Just like out in Meeker with all those cattle that have been missing, it was unknown canid tracks and unknown canid DNA.
Because that's where we asked the question, what in this day and age constitutes an unknown canine species?
Right. We kind of know all of them,
Yeah. Because we made them all.
Domestically, I should say. Domestic. Crazy, man. Makes you wonder.
Greg says, a friend of mine was the director for the health department. She went out on an inspection and a pack of wild dogs killed and shredded her 2 years ago in Winston County, Alabama. Was confirmed it was dogs, or is that what the public statement was? Just a guy says, Actually, what I find interesting is that we always hear about how bad Bigfoot / Sasquatch and dogs go together. Never anything about dog men. I tell you one thing we've got to remember here in Missouri, and I would assume it's probably similar in any other states that have a feral hog problem. If you've got a dog, especially a small dog or a puppy, and you go camping with it, you will attract feral hogs. They will kill and eat dogs.
Hell, they'll kill and eat you. They killed a lady
Oh,
in
yeah, they will.
They killed a lady in Texas. She was a 62-year-old caregiver for this 80-something-year-old couple in Texas, and 15 yards from the porch, she pulled her car up. And she got hit by a pack of wild hogs, and they ate the hell out of her.
That's what I was about to say. Wild hogs kill and eat just about anything.
Oh, they killed her and ate her, man.
What movie was that where the killer was taking bodies out to the hog farm to dispose of them?
I mean, there's been several incidences of it. I mean, fact and fiction.
Yeah.
Snatch is one of them, where Bricktop had pigs.
But
old Woo had it in Deadwood.
And
Isabel's got a good comment. She says, when I was a teen, like 25 years ago in Hillmar, California, there was a case of wild dogs attacking animals. Everyone was freaked out because they started with the brain. Now I'm not so sure. Yeah, that's not normal. Dogs don't generally go directly for the brain. They go for large muscle masses because that's where the meat is. When Robbie and I and Noah found that deer carcass, it had the top of its head not cut off, busted off, and the brains were gone. What does that?
That's weird.
That is not typical behavior.
Zombie Bigfoot?
Man, I don't know.
Although, Doc, this is an interesting question for you. I've never been one for eating organs, especially the brains, but would it not increase your chance of getting a version of chronic wasting disease if you ate deer brains?
Yeah.
Because the prions come from the brains.
Correct.
So I would think they would want to avoid eating the brains.
You would think.
Oh yeah, and most animals, like we're stupid but we're smart, or we're smart but we're stupid. However you want to look at it, we'll eat something or drink something that's bad for us without know. But animals know instinctively what they can't. You won't find animals drinking out of stagnant water, but humans will be stupid enough to drink out of stagnant water.
Right.
Why is that?
Hey, I've got an interesting thought, boys. And Doc, you definitely know the medical end better than I do. But Robbie, you're just as suspicious as I am. Let's see if this doesn't ring a bell with the two of you. We all know that the first instances of Lyme disease came from a lab off the New York coast. That was the Montauk monster. The Montauk Research Facility is where Lyme disease was first created. Lyme disease is a man-made disease. What if there was deliberate attempts to introduce both Lyme disease and chronic wasting disease, not to affect humans, but to affect cryptid populations?
So they're doing a little bit of biological warfare against the cryptid population.
Well, remember the book that I told you? Remember the book I told you about? That's about the Bigfoots that had rabies. Mm-hmm. That's what happened with that. Is they were trying to use rabies to combat the Bigfoot population, and instead of killing them, it just caused them to go nuts. And
what if chronic wasting was artificially introduced to the deer population? Because when I was a kid, hunting deer, I never even heard of chronic wasting disease, and I deer hunted all my life. It was only really got to be a problem here in Missouri probably in the last 20 years. And we know prion diseases will jump species. And if it'll hit a human and they're that close to our DNA, it'll hit them. So what if chronic wasting and Lyme disease were introduced to control their population, not ours?
Yeah, that's a good point, dude. That's a good point. Oh, Roxanne, a lot of folks eat buck brains. Our daddy used to eat buck brains and cow brains and pig brains and squirrel brains. I remember him popping open a squirrel skull at the table, eating it. Oh, God.
That's what souse meat is.
I've known folks that would eat, squirrel brains and eggs and things like that. I've never done it because never really wanted to eat brains. I don't generally eat any of the awful meats. I really don't.
I'm good.
Right.
I'm good.
My grandpa used to make souse meat all the time. That's made out of hog brains. That's
Head cheese.
When I was a kid, when we raised hogs, when they butchered hogs, they used everything. My grandparents even made blood sausage, which I don't know if y'all ever had blood sausage. If you ain't, I don't recommend it. It's like eating a hot dog that tastes like a scab.
Vampires love it.
It's very irony, and I don't mean irony as in it has a lot of iron flavor. It tastes very metallic.
As in Ferris.
Yes, it is not bueno.
Well, it only took us an hour and 1 minute to completely derail.
Well, no, it's kind of on topic.
I know. I'm just messing
all meats, but
Yeah.
and I've heard a lot about deer liver being popular among Bigfoot because there's so many nutrients in the liver. But if they eat the brains as well, like in that case that where me and Robbie found the skull had been busted off. It wasn't cut. It didn't look like anybody had done that with a hacksaw. The top of the head, there were jagged chunks of bone, and the top of the head was gone, and the brains were gone.
That's interesting. Yeah, because I know that when animals typically eat another animal, predator eat another animal, they eat the liver and the kidneys and the heart because those are really nutrient dense. So they need all that iron and those nutrients in there. So interesting. Very interesting.
Yep.
Hold on.
I've had haggis.
I have had
and blood sausage over there.
Blood sausage and blood pudding.
They call it black sausage or black pudding over there. So it's actually pretty tasty. It's real rich.
I'm going to pull up this video. This is from Blunk Road when Robbie and I and Noah found the deer with the missing skull. Once this pulls up, I'm going to try to freeze that on the frame. This is a video, so it's stopped. Let me get this out of the way. See if I can get that down. Yeah, move it up. Maybe it'll be out of the way there. All right, I'm going to play this, and I'm going to try to pause it when I get to the deer top of its skull. That's deer hide that had been pulled off, not skinned and cut off like it had been grabbed and just torn off and tossed aside. There. I don't know how well you can see it, but you can see the top of the head is busted off. Let me see if I can zoom in on this any. It will not let me zoom in. God dang it. But that's the area I'm talking about. You guys see it okay?
Yep.
Yeah,
yes.
That brain, you can see the ragged edge where the top of the skull has been busted off. I don't know if this was a doe or not. There wasn't enough left to identify. But the lower jaw was gone. Most of the nose was gone. The eyes were gone. And the skull, the brains looked like they'd been scooped out. There wasn't nothing left. I will see if I can get a screenshot of that, and then we can zoom in on it. So give me just a second. I will attempt to. Granted, I am no Photoshop guy or anything like that, so I might be able to upscale this a little bit. Give me just a second. Okay, this is going to be pretty quick and dirty. Okay. me pull this up. Did that pull up? Hold on, I'm gonna have to stop sharing. Give me just a second. Okay, that did it. All right, this, like I said, this is just quick and dirty. I don't know how well this is going to upscale, but we should be able to get you a little bit better look at this. There we go. Now I should be able to zoom in on that. You can see the ragged bone. That's not cut.
Ew. That's a pretty good regular sized hole as far as being concentric.
Yeah. I mean, it was hit from two different angles. I mean, you got the bone here and then the bone over here, and you can see how ragged it is. It's not a smooth cut.
No.
So I don't think that was cut with a saw. And the whole brain cavity was empty. That's as far as I can zoom in, and we're all starting to lose quite a bit of the resolution. But unfortunately, that's the best I'm able to do.
And Doc, that was right where we saw that thing in the river.
Damn sure is.
Well, at Blanc Road?
Yep.
Okay, so remember that other skeleton that was laying over the other side of the road too?
Mm-hmm.
There's another deer skeleton on the side of the road when we pulled in there that night.
Yep.
Sure was.
Blanc Road never disappoints.
No.
Don Donaldson says DA on the chronic wasting disease. If you knew the areas hardest hit by it, and how that matches up with Bigfoot and dogman populations. I'm going to dig into that, see if I can figure out where the worst cases have been reported here in Missouri, and see if that overlaps with reported sightings. But I'd be willing to bet it probably does. Haliwa Wolf says, was it possible that was a bite hole, like it was biting an apple? Maybe. That's entirely possible. But that would mean it would have had to have been a doe, because if there had been antlers up there, it wouldn't have been able to have bitten into the top of the skull quite so easy. But yeah, it's entirely possible that was bitten apart.
I think he's referencing, could that have been maybe a face eater?
Maybe. We know that they've got enough bite pressure to bite through bone.
And we know they're probably in that area.
Because it looks like chewing for sure. Premium Element says Anonymous just tipped $15. Well, thank you, man. We appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anonymous Mouse.
Hey, Nani Mouse.
Hey, Nani, yo ho ho.
Anonymous
Mouse. There's my men in tights reference for the night. Just a guy says DA quick search from the Googles. I've got a lot of people using the Googles now. Robbie, you should get a trademark on that.
I know. I need to trademark that.
It says northern Colorado, southern Wyoming, and western Nebraska. Those areas where they've had a lot of missing or a lot of chronic wasting disease?
I think he's talking about CWD, because we've had a lot of it out here.
LS420 Stoner says, Mr. Roberts, just out of curiosity, when would be the best time to look for a dogman or Bigfoot, and where's the best place to find one? What it seems like around here, and I think Robbie and Doc can back up the veracity of this, while every time Robbie and I have gone to Blanc Road or to Combs Ferry, something has happened, but it's much more active in the cooler months. Not sure why, it just is. High concentration of CWD. Yep. And there's also areas where there have been a lot of sightings.
And, like you said, every time we've gone out, we've encountered something. And there was only maybe one or two times we went out this last time when Doc was down there when we didn't at least find something that was
Thank
like,
you, sir.
because
Anonymous was smoking native 2117. Thank you, man. Really appreciate it.
when we were at Combs Ferry, it was creepy. It was weird, but we really didn't see anything until we got back around and we found that patch of deer. Well, we found some footprints, but we didn't see anything that was kind of like, ooh, this is creepy. Until we found that patch of deer skin as we were coming out. And Dog looked at me like, just like, what's up? I'm like, yeah, except it was the whole hide then.
Don, I
But-
will definitely be digging into that, see if I can find the hardest hit areas. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry about that, Robbie.
No, that's fine. I don't think there might be a better time to look for one or the other. Like, it maybe when it's warmer, it's better to look for Bigfoot, and when it's colder, it's better to look for dog. I don't know. There may be a better time of the year to look for one or the other, but depending on where you're at, like in Missouri, obviously, I've been down there in 3 of the 4 seasons, and I've always seen or experienced something.
Yeah, the Ozarks, from what I read, the Ozarks has one of the highest concentrations of cryptid sightings, period, in the United States. So that right there shows you how active things are. I mean, yeah.
If anybody is interested, April 24th through the 26th, I think. You can find it on the BFRO website. There's a expedition that's going to be camping out. I'm going to be teaching another tracking class, but that's going to be somewhere in the Ozark Mountains. If you want to go to that and kind of hang out and camp out, we'll be camping out. So hopefully there's going to be some interesting things found then. But sometime around April 24th to the 26th, or maybe the 24th through 27th, something like that. I can't. You remember off the top of your head when it was, DA?
Not off the top of my head, no.
But
the one I'll be speaking at's in October.
Yeah, this is the one before that. This is in April. But I'll be teaching another tracking class in that one, and then of course DA and I'll be back at the one in Ohio in that's in October too. That's the end of October, right? Yeah. So we'll be back out there teaching some more tracking and doing some more speaking engagements and all that kind of good stuff.
Okay, so as Don suggested, I looked up the most active areas for chronic wasting disease in the state of Missouri. The most in 2023, 27 counties tested positive for chronic wasting disease. Okay, the highest concentration was in Franklin and what's the other? Franklin and Jefferson counties. Okay, but it also says the MDC, Missouri Department of Conservation, has designated core areas of concern in the Springfield area, including Christian, Taney, and Dallas counties. And every one of those counties, including Franklin and Jefferson, have some of the most amount of reports per the BFRO. Some of the highest concentrations in Missouri. So take that as you will. But I know Taney County and Christian County, Stone County and Perry County are all pretty much hot spots.
I hear Taney. I just think of that story you were telling me and Doc about Lake Taneycomo.
Yeah.
That's just so simple. And you think there's just some kind of big explanation. you're like, wow.
It really is easier than I thought. Lake Taneycomo, for years, I'm like, what the hell is that even named after? And it's Taneycomo, Taney County, Missouri, Taneycomo.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Was nowhere near as complicated as I thought it was.
Yeah.
But, like, how about that?
These have on people, Doc.
Say that again.
What kind of effect does chronic wasting disease have on people? Like,
Oh,
what does it affect how they act? Does it affect, what does it do to them, and how would you think that would correlate to a cryptid?
oh, it's horrible. It's horrible, man. CJD, Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, or Jakob disease, however you want to pronounce it. But CJD is a horrible, horrible neurological affliction. It starts with, obviously headaches and neurological impairment up to at the time of death, because it causes the brain to become spongiform. Basically, it eats holes in the brain, in the gray matter, and so people end up becoming a shell of themselves, so to speak, and then end up dying from it. Actually, one of the nurses I worked with at a hospital years ago, her mom got it, and it was a horrible death. And so they don't know where she got it, how she got it, because it can lie dormant, and then it can, like the angry drunken German says, it can cause seizures and Alzheimer's type symptoms. So it goes into, and into it starts out with like things like short-term memory loss, long-term memory loss, to seizures, to Alzheimer's, dementia symptoms, up to just a catatonic state and death. And so it's pretty scary, man. It's pretty scary. So I would not wish that on my worst enemy, having.
So it would probably have similar effect to cryptids if they're that genetically.
Yeah, and it's not going to, people are like, oh, it's going to turn them into a zombie. It's not going to make them. They might look like a zombie because they're not functioning. They don't have any high brain function really, but it's not going to make them more aggressive, because their brains are going to be misfiring, because there's all kinds of blockages in there where there's missing tissue. So it's not going to make them like really aggressive or anything. It's just going to kill the piss out of them.
Harold Goodell wanted to know if those counties, I think he means here in Missouri, have cave systems. Missouri is a cave state. We are riddled with caves. There's caves all over this state.
You ain't lying.
Someone says my mic volume is low. Sorry about that. I'll try to make sure I'm staying close to the mic.
Well, and I'm deaf too.
There are cryptids in the desert. Yes, lots of cryptid encounters from the desert.
Yeah, it's a pretty horrible disease.
Yeah, it's not something I would wish off on anything.
No.
Well, I mean, if it's brings on like anything like Alzheimer's or dementia or anything like that, obviously that's horrible enough in itself, much less adding the other stuff that you said it brings on. So
yeah, so who is it has a question on the Mary Cole? Is it the same as mad cow disease? Okay, they're both fatal diseases caused by prions, however you want to do it. CJD occurs basically without a known cause. It can be inherited, or it can be, scary enough, it can be acquired through contaminated medical procedures, because sometimes even sterilization doesn't kill those prions. Now, the mad cow disease is caused by eating infected beef from cattle with that disease, and so it's pretty scary, man, and usually affects people over. CJD is for people, and then the mad cow is for cattle.
Kevin Bode wants to know: is it a virus, a cancer, or just a bug?
Prion. It's its own little special critter.
And LS420 Stoner says, I wonder if Gugway demon monkeys would be more affected by CWD due to how carnivorous they are. I would say that's an animal that would probably eat pretty much all of its kill. So if it's hunting in an area with CJ, yeah, that's a good question though. If you're eating a deer that has chronic wasting disease, does it affect just the brain, or does it affect the whole deer?
I mean, it depends on if the prion's been killed through cooking, and sometimes they're saying that it's not. So if the thing is, if you're harvesting an animal in an area that's got known chronic wasting disease, then what you need to do is get the animal checked prior to processing it.
And a lot of places I know here in Missouri, when you check in your deer, they will test it. But for those of you who live in states where they may not test it, or you just want to be certain, there's a company called Priogen, and they make a home test kit that you can test deer for yourself. It's the CWA Venison Test Kit. It's $59. But again, the company's called Priogen, Priogen, and if I haven't hunted in the last several years, I get back into it, I'm probably going to keep a few of these kits on hand.
Yeah,
Because if you're bringing that meat home to your family, you want to know for sure.
yeah. It's neither a bacteria nor a virus. It's a protein type little bug, and it's extremely difficult to kill. So I think, yeah, there you go. LS420 said a prion's misfolded malformed protein that replicates itself. Yeah, so
This is what it said on Priogen's website. It says, if you're curious about the CWD status of a deer you've just harvested or one in the freezer from last season, Priogen has your answer with the first of its kind CWD test kits available to the public. Current CWD testing options, though, through state agencies or laboratories rely on samples such as lymph nodes or brain, but sometimes you no longer have those samples or not able to test through these routes. Are you an outfitter or a large hunting camp interested in a bulk order? Blah blah blah. But you can test the meat itself. You don't have to necessarily test brain or lymph nodes. You can just test it directly from the meat. So if you're a deer hunter, or if you know somebody who deer hunts and they occasionally bring you packages of deer meat, and you just want to be sure, $59 is a cheap way to get some peace of mind.
yeah. And if you're like Angry Drunken German says, if you're a hunter, game eater, learn about as much as possible, because it's not going away.
Right. In fact, it's probably just going to get worse. Yeah, Missouri Department of Conservation has done a hell of a lot to try to eradicate it in Missouri. Once it's detected, they start taking out herds. They take them out and burn them. So I think Missouri's trying to be proactive, but I just don't know, now that the genie's out of the bottle, just how effective it's going to be.
Well, I still think that we are on something when we talked about it last time we talked about this, that, it's just awful damn curious and convenient this shit showed up the way it did. And that affects people's ability to be hunter-gatherers, because what's the number one game meat that people harvest when they're hunting for themselves?
Bingo. Bingo.
I would be less than surprised if word came out that not only Lyme disease but CWD was not created in a lab.
Well, yeah, and because like you said, it's so funny how it never was a thing for years until it was. So,
Greg House says, I don't coon hunt or eat coons simply because coons are the number one carrier of rabies. That's why I tell people, if you've got animals that are getting into your garden or stuff, be very careful, because the up-armored version of the possum, the armadillo, it carries some pretty nasty diseases, including the same disease that Doc Holliday had, tuberculosis, and they've also, some of them been
Leprosy.
been reported carrying leprosy, or in some instances, the plague. So if you got an armadillo getting into your trash or stuff and you decide to shoot it, be very careful how you dispose of it.
Them damn tactical assault possums.
Yeah, right. The up-armored Humvee version of a possum.
Yeah, and
Just a Guy's got an interesting point.
So does Hillary.
Says, yeah, but when we have mass killings of the primary source of food for squatch slash dogmen, that sort of pushes them to long pig, doesn't it? You ain't wrong.
Yep.
What Hillary say?
So it just flashed.
Oh, there it is.
Got it. Good.
It sounds to me, Robbie, like there is some sorry, sick, sadistic SOB somewhere that needs some attention. I would agree. If these were genuinely unleashed, from a lab instead of just some naturally occurring disease, because I'd never heard of CWD when I was first deer hunting back in the 80s. Never heard of it.
We just said it a minute ago when we was talking about Taney Como. Oh, it really is that simple, huh? Yeah, it really is that simple. How many movies has that been the plot of? Some crazy scientist who thought he was smarter than everybody else releases some kind of plague on the world because he could. The simplest things are usually the best answers, and there's a reason that's a selling plot to so many damn movies.
There's been a number of articles that have been released where scientists working for our government have released genetically modified mosquitoes and ticks.
Oh, the people that release that kind of stuff, their nickname, what they are rhymes with ticks. That's for sure.
Damn right. Steve Stepanek says, do you think aggressive Bigfoot have been infected by tainted deer meat, DA? I think when it comes to Bigfoot and or Dogman, but more specifically Bigfoot, I think it's just going to be the personalities of the individuals. Like Doc was saying, it doesn't necessarily, CWD won't necessarily make them more aggressive. But I think it depends on the individual. I mean, like that guy we talked about earlier, Timothy, whatever his name is, the Grizzly Man. He had gone up there and been among those bears on a number of occasions and thought he knew them and thought they could trust him, and still got et. And he got himself and his girlfriend eaten.
Oh, I remember that dude. Yeah.
Timothy Treadwell.
Yeah.
Yep. Called himself the Grizzly Man.
Yep. And her name was Amy Huguenot, I think.
Yeah, his hubris got her killed.
Yeah, exactly. And Arnold, the working title on my book is Shadow Walkers, Book 1, Silver Star. But the thing is, and we've talked about this so many times before, is, and Doc, you just said it earlier tonight, people thinking that, they're the top of the food chain, they know better, that's exactly what that was. I mean, he thought because he'd been in there a couple times before that he knew how to handle nature. Well, yeah, maybe he was good those few times, but the bear that killed him, they found out it was old. It had 2 or 3 different teeth that were in the state of, rot and decay. It couldn't hunt.
Couldn't hunt anymore.
It
found an easy meal and ate it.
Yeah, exactly. So
and that is the nature of bears.
Exactly.
Nature of any animal, any predator, when it gets older and can't hunt, is going to look for the easiest sources of prey.
Yep.
And he put himself out there.
And the thing is, if he was as good as he claimed he was, he would have known something like that.
Doc, there's a question about your kits in the chat from Haliwa Wolf.
But, not only did he get himself killed, he got her killed because she trusted him. And that to me is what pisses me off more than anything. If he takes his own life in his hands because he's stupid and he don't want to take the time to figure out all the ins and outs of it, fine. But when you say, hey, trust me, I got this, I know what's going on, and he drags somebody in there who doesn't know what they're doing and gets them killed, that's where it gets, rubs my rhubarb, as Jack Nicholson would say. Never rub a man's rhubarb.
That's right. Greg House says even Yogi and Boo Boo will eat you. You ain't wrong.
Right. Yep.
I mean, these are wild animals. I mean, just because you think you understand them, they are not house pets.
Hey, yeah, just because it's friend shaped don't mean it is.
Yeah, look at Siegfried and Roy. They raised that tiger from the time it was a cub, and then it ate. What was it, Siegfried or Roy? It ate one of them.
I think it was Siegfried. I think no, it was Roy. Boy,
Yeah.
That
Pulled
got
him
up
up
on the
right
neck.
there on
who
stage.
knows? It ate one of them.
Yeah. And you cannot control Mother Nature as
What?
much as we have in our hubris have thought we could over the centuries.
Look
Man
at the
cannot control nature.
look at the entertainment marvel of the plague of the 21st century, Tiger King. You know, that was the entertainment juggernaut of COVID. Everybody binge watched Tiger King during that. I was one of them. I came in to work one day and my chief was like, "Oh my God, dude, you have got." He said, "I sat there and watched every bit of it." So I did. But look at that.
I will never financially
How
recover from this.
exactly? How many people? It was like somebody was getting attacked every other show on that damn thing.
Yeah.
Steve Stepanik's got a great question. Could a Wendigo be like it is because of a disease? What if the Wendigo is a virus?
We actually talked about that before.
Yeah.
Remember? We did almost a whole show on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
And
a
we
great point.
like I said, we have talked about it before, and I think it's a very interesting point. What if it is?
So my best
It's
buddy
just a
said something
disease we
too.
can't identify.
Right. He said, if y'all remember, the Zika virus was a genetically modified mosquito disease released accidentally from South America. How did all of a sudden it just disappear? You ain't heard. I mean, it's gone like a popcorn fart, man. You ain't heard no more about it.
Well,
Mhm.
that's not exactly the first time we've heard of a disease being created in a lab and accidentally released. Hey, well,
Yeah.
And it probably won't be the last either.
Correct, sir.
Greg says, what about the lady that had the chimp that ate her face? She's not the only one. Chimps make dangerous pets. Chimps will turn on you, and they will generally go after your face, your fingers, and your crotch. For some reason, that's what they will bite off just to attack an enemy.
And Mondog says hashtag Carol Baskins. She done fed him to a togger.
Shouldn't it be that bitch, Carol Baskins?
That's how he referred to her.
Yeah, it's every time.
Bitch Carol Baskins.
Speaking of that, Tiger King's place was down there near Brown Springs. And before it got shut down, there was a number of tigers that escaped.
Well, you know, one of the places that they did featured in that is in South Carolina. The
Yeah, the
Tigerland
Carol
Safari.
Baskin's place is there in Myrtle
Carol
Beach.
Baskin, no, Carol Baskin's in Florida. The one that's in South Carolina is that the guy who has all the wives, who's got the little harem, all the women.
Yeah, that's right. We almost went there when we were in Myrtle
That's
Beach.
yeah.
We were gonna
It's
go
at
to that tiger reserve.
it's at was it Barefoot Landing? I think is where it's at. It's as far. I've actually been there before. It's a pretty nice little place, but I mean, but yeah, I think Carol was in Florida. I think is where she was at. That's where she hamburgered her husband and fed him to the tigers.
Ron Yelton says that Jessica, the cryptid huntress, was talking about how super soldiers animal gene therapy was being conducted in the Middle East by Israel. Well, they wouldn't be the first one to try it. It was tried by both Germany and Russia during World War II. They both tried to create modified animal super soldiers. The Russians tried to directly breed human women with chimpanzees and orangutans.
What?
Yeah.
Shit you not. Look it up, brother. They tried to breed human women with chimpanzees and orangutans to build a super strong, obedient super soldier. Didn't work, but they tried it.
Thank God it didn't work. That's disgusting.
And allegedly during World War II, the Russians captured a Yeti near the Mongolian border and were planning to do the same thing with that, but it escaped while it was being taken to Moscow.
Well, wasn't there a woman in Siberia or somewhere that had gotten captured? Yeah, and she was pregnant.
Wild woman had
kept killing her kids.
Several of the villagers. Yeah, she'd take them out and try to wash them in freezing cold water, and it kept killing the kids. So they would eventually take them away from them.
My question is, what kind of ad are they running in what kind of newspaper to get volunteers for that super soldier program? Are you bored? Are you lonely?
Angry
Boy,
Joe.
we've got the answer for you.
Problem was the monkeys didn't want to breed with Russian women. They
They didn't have enough.
vodka to get the monkeys on
I was
board.
about to say they didn't have enough vodka for the monkeys.
Well, yeah.
Steve Spanik says, I have a video of Congress voting on an underground cryptid breeding program. Cool. I'd like to see that video. I watched it on C-SPAN back in 2019 when they were trying to pass a vote to alter federal hunting laws to include near human chimeras. What exactly is a near human chimera? It's something that is close to human with other DNA mixed in.
Freaking Island of Dr. Moreau, man.
No shit.
But the other one, not the one with Val Kilmer. That one was weird.
I didn't even see that one. I saw the one back in the 70s.
Yeah, the one with Val Kilmer was disturbing to say
Yeah.
the least.
Val Kilmer and who was the Godfather, Marlon Brando.
Marlon Brando.
I'm gonna make you an offer you can't refuse. I'm gonna turn you into a cheetah.
Rodney says the world's getting crazier by the day. Get trained and carry the weapon of your choice, human and animal. He ain't wrong. And folks, I'm not gonna jump on a bandwagon preaching. A lot of what we refer to as gun tubers. Some of the big channels will say you've got to have this high end, $5,000 special gun with this ammo. You don't need any of that. What you need is one weapon that you know and know how to use. If you don't train with it, it doesn't matter how much you spend on it. It's not going to do any good. I mean, I've had better results with a used $350 Glock 17 that I've had for years because I bought it used. Then I know a guy who was trying to qualify on the same range with me, who was half my age, who had $5,000 wrapped up in the SIG in his holster and couldn't hit the broadside of a bomb.
Yeah, there's an old saying in the Old West that said, beware of the old man with one gun.
You're right.
Because like DA said, it doesn't matter how fancy, how many bells and whistles you have on your gun. If you ain't comfortable with it and you can't use it and you don't know how to use it.
Yeah.
And we're not talking about taking it out to the range once every 6 or 8 months and putting a couple magazines through it. If you don't know how to use that weapon, it will fail you at the worst possible time.
Well, be proficient because, yeah, Winston Churchill said, I'd rather have a first-rate soldier with a third-rate weapon than a third-rate soldier with a first-rate weapon.
Exactly.
It's all about the person behind it and how comfortable they are and familiar they are with it.
If you're not experienced with a lot of these weapons, I'm not trying to get off on a tangent here talking about firearms, but get something simple and learn to use it. If all you're comfortable using is a revolver is still a very, very effective weapon. They're much more difficult to jam than an automatic. I'm not saying you can't jam one; it is possible, but they're much less likely to jam, and they're very easy to load. But whatever you get, whether it's a revolver, an automatic, or a bolt action, whatever you get comfortable with it. Make sure you know how to use it. Make sure you know how to take care of it. I've been thinking about starting another channel just to do just little videos on that, and I don't care if it ever monetizes, just for me to do something. I was just going to do what gun is right for you, that kind of thing. Just basic common sense little videos. Maybe do a 15-20 minute video on how to field strip a Glock and clean it. How to field strip in 1911. How to break down and clean a revolver. Just some basic common sense stuff like that shows people that you don't have to be Brandon Herrera or the donut operator to be effective with a firearm. And you don't have to have all the bells and whistles and a $7,000 handgun to be effective with it.
I used to tell people when I helped Dad with his CWP class, people would ask me all the time, well, what gun should I get? And I tell them, the one you're comfortable with.
Bingo.
I'm like, if you're comfortable, if you go out and get a high point, which in my opinion is one of the nastiest and trashiest guns. It's a boat anchor. But if you're comfortable with that boat anchor and you can run that boat anchor and do what you need to do with it, by all means, then go ahead, because what you're comfortable with up here is what you're going to shoot best with.
And I know people that have high points, and most what guys who consider themselves serious gun guys just roll their eyes like, oh God, not a high point. It's a cheap gun, and if you watch Demolition Ranch, where he tried to kill a high point, even he's like, I went into this wanting to hate this gun, but if you want a gun that you can just load and throw in your toolbox and forget it's in there, this is the one. They're cheap, but they are fairly well produced.
Yeah.
It's not something I would have carried on duty, but if I needed something in my glove box to ward off an attacker, I'm going to guarantee I'm going to be able to get at least the first few rounds into him before any issues come up with the gun. But the thing is to be effective with any weapon, and that's from knife, staff, whatever. You've got to be proficient with it. You just can't pick it up one day and expect to be John Wick.
And that's the thing, and that's when I say that, in my opinion, high point's trashy, that's because I don't feel comfortable with a high point in my hand. I've shot them, and I do not feel comfortable with one. So therefore, in my opinion, it's not a good gun. But you know what? I can outshoot people with my Glock, but I guarantee you there's people who are comfortable with a high point that might could outshoot me because they're comfortable with it and they've used it. And they might look at a Glock and say, hey, that's a trashy piece of junk. And that's their right to do, as long as they're comfortable with what they've had. Everybody's got a right to their own opinion about it. So, I would never bash a gun that I had not shot before, because I don't know how that gun operates. But if I've shot it and I don't like it and it's not comfortable with me and I don't feel like it's a gun that I can use, then I'm going to tell you how I feel about it. I'm like, this is not something for me. You have to make your own decision. It's just like what I said a second ago, and that's what Doc was saying. You have to have a gun in your hand that you feel comfortable with. If it's a high point, great. Get a high point all day long. Because I will tell you, if that's what you're comfortable with and you can run that gun, more power to you.
I bought a Kel-Tec P17. It's a 22 caliber magazine fed pistol, 17 rounds in the magazine. It's a very uncomplicated 22 automatic pistol. Brand new, out of the box, they're $200. I bought one just expecting it just to be something to plink with, but it is probably one of the best little 22 pistols I've ever bought. And it is small enough that a woman could keep one in her purse. And the 22, especially if you load it with hollow points, is very effective. And the fact that you got 17 of them is, well, it's pretty impressive. So if you don't want to carry anything heavy and all you're looking for something that might deter somebody, Kel-Tec P17 is a pretty good little pistol.
Well, case in point, like that shotgun that we got, DA, that we both got. When I first got that, my son was like, oh, why'd you want to get that? It's a bullpup. It's magazine fed. That's a piece of junk. Da, 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 da. He came over to the house and shot it, and he was like, I need to get me one of these. I'm like,
Yeah, it runs effectively, very surprisingly well.
Until you put it in your hand, don't make the judgment. Right, Doc?
Correct.
But if you put it in your hand and it don't work, you need to get something that works.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's what you were most comfortable with and what you were good at. You don't need to buy the top of the line SIG with all the bells and whistles and all of the laser the laser aim point sights, and you don't need all of that to be effective with a firearm. Now, if I was running competitions, yeah, I might go for something a little higher end, but it would be a weapon I would be training with.
Yeah.
But as far as reliability and carrying out, like when we go out in the woods or for home defense here in the house, I have put a lot of lead downrange with pretty much every weapon I've got, and I'm familiar with those weapons. And if I have to grab one in a hurry, I'm going to be proficient with it.
Greg, I've got a dagger. Really good gun. Noah's got one too.
Noah loves his. I've shot Noah's. It runs just like a Glock.
I mean, they pretty much are.
Yeah, pretty much. 443 Big Vic says you could swap out your 22 long rifle for a 223. 223 is a good little pistol. I mean, if you get a 223 caliber pistol, it like an AR pistol, they're just fine. But if you're wanting something that ain't going to cost you or break the bank, you can plink 22 long rifle all day and not really go that deep in your pocketbook. Just Ryan says high points and Tauruses are probably the most collected evidence from crime scenes. Doesn't surprise me.
Taurus.
I don't know about Robbie, but every time I've taken a handgun from somebody, from individuals perpetrating, it's always like they've got a magazine that's only got like 4 rounds in it and no 2 bullets match. It's just what are a handful of ammo. It's like they got a gun, but they're afraid to go buy ammo for it, so they just scavenge whatever ammo they can find. And Mary says, let's go back to the main topic. Absolutely. We will do that very thing. But we wanted to kind of get off on a soapbox here for a second, just to let you guys know it's not important what you carry so long as you're proficient with it, and that applies to other things as well, like first aid kits or survival gear. It's knowing how to use what you carry, and that whenever we go out in the field, we always have a safety briefing. We've always got med kits scattered. Everybody knows their role, and that's what we do. But when we're talking, when kind of getting back to the subject of the missing hunters, these are guys who should have already have been the same. Well, this is what we're talking about. They should have been prepared. These are guys that had hunted that area before. These are guys that were well equipped, were armed, who should not have gone missing in an area they were that familiar with. Yet still they have, and that's the truly terrifying part when you start talking about armed individuals who were experienced with firearms, who knew what they were doing, who still disappeared without a trace. So that should give you pause. Make you wonder. You wonder just what's out there. Robbie, just not too far from him, not wasn't all that long ago. A lady walking a couple of dogs went missing, and
Yep.
never found one of the dogs. They only found one dog. They never found her. They never found the dog. And a very eerily similar story happened right here in Christian County, Missouri, not 5 years ago.
They did find her.
They did find her? Okay.
Yeah, but it's like a month later, but they found her down the bottom of a 50-foot ravine.
There was a lady that was hiking one of the Greenway trails in Christian County near Ozark along the Finley River. And she was walking 2 dogs, and when they found her, she'd been mauled to death, and they tried to say it was the dogs, but the dogs were trying to defend her body when they found her. So I've often thought there was more to that than they ever released to the public. But even in areas where you think you might be safe, you could still run into something that you're not prepared for. So if we're learning anything from these missing hunters, it's to be prepared. If you're going out, and even if it's hiking, camping, fishing, backpacking, hunting, it doesn't necessarily have to be going out looking for cryptids. If you're going out somewhere, you have the right to come home safe. And you've got to be prepared in that event, because in a lot of these places, especially if you're deep on a trail, you're either going to have no phone service, or it might be a couple hours. 911 could get to you if you can get a signal. You've got to plan for these things. We always say if we're going into an area, we go wherever we're going. And when me and Doc and Noah and Robbie were together a couple weeks ago, this is exactly what we did. We made sure that, was usually my wife because she wasn't going with us, but we made sure there was somebody who knew where we were going, what time we were supposed to be coming back, and when to expect us. And if we didn't, then that was the immediate place to start sending somebody in. And we went into some pretty woolly places. Yes, we came back out again, but we had a couple of close calls, literally close calls, and it made me give a much bigger appreciation, much deeper appreciation for those little safety briefings we have before we go out, because they became very important when it looked like we were getting cut off and may not had the first choice of way out of that valley. Yes, there were 2 ways, but 2 ways out of that valley, but it was the same road on both sides of the river. And it would not have taken a great deal to have cut us off. And we'd had to make our stand on that bridge because I wasn't doing it in the woods. Uh, 443 Big Vic says pack some rat shot if you think you'll be in an area where there's snakes. Oh yeah. I've got some snake shot from my 357. Mondoc says there was a lady came up missing. She was last seen by the banks of the Yellowstone north of Glendive, Montana. The official theory is that she drowned. She hasn't been found. Been missing a couple years now. You would think they would have found something, but in a couple of years, someone might have found some skeletal debris in the water, piece of clothing, piece of equipment. But when somebody goes absolutely missing with zero trace, that's bizarre. I mean, I can understand it in lakes like Table Rock, where parts of that lake are 270, 280 feet deep, or Lake of the Ozarks, which has some places that are in excess of 300 feet deep. I can get it in water with that deep, but rivers don't generally get that deep. Generally, rivers, 6, 8 feet deep in the deepest spots, depending on the river. But like the Missouri or the Mississippi, they'll get pretty deep. Those were deep enough for steamboats. But most rivers, especially some of the swifter rivers up in the mountains, don't tend to get very much more than a few feet deep. So them not finding somebody, that's a big red flag. Greg House says rat shot also for the fact that if you get lost and are stranded and need to shoot something to eat, that's one of the reasons I keep that little 22 as a pocket pistol. If I've got to shoot small game, I don't want to blow half the meat away with something the size of a 357. That little 22 is perfect for that.
That's another thing, knowing how to make traps for stuff like that, so you don't waste your ammo on small stuff like that.
Yeah, and if you guys have not heard of a book called the SAS Survival Guide, I highly recommend it. I've got the large print format edition. Well, not large print, but the large book version, and I've got the pocket version. And it'll teach you, like which plants are edible, how to make shelters, how to make basic snares and traps. There's a lot of useful information in that book. It's one I keep in my pack all the time. Ron Yelton says, when you're near freshwater, take into account sharks, gators, crocs, giant eels, or giant snakes, or snapping turtles that could get you. Yeah, and I've seen some pretty dang big alligator snapping turtles here in Missouri. I found one time that was as big around as a manhole cover. Kid you not. Boys, we are rapidly approaching the 2-hour mark. Anything else you guys want to add?
Nope.
Well,
I think it's been well covered.
Well, then how about you tell us a little bit about Dark Angel Medical and where to get those fine kits. Folks, if you're going to be going out hunting, fishing, camping, backpacking, whitewater rafting, canoeing, whatever you're going to be doing, if you're going to be away from basic 911 services and you don't have a med kit, that is a bad deal. If you're not failing, you're not just failing to plan, you're planning to fail. Go ahead, Doc.
All right, folks. So head over to darkangelmedical.com and check out our wide line of anything from minor boo-boo kits all the way up to a life-threatening emergency kit, all the way up to mass casualty bags. We have kits for your cars, your trucks, your boats, your RVs, your home, things like that. One of the things I talk about in my classes that I teach all over the U.S. is if you got a fire extinguisher in your house, you need to have a trauma kit right there next to it. That way everybody can find it and know where it is. The best kit you got is the one you got on hand. And so having the kit is one thing. Knowing how to use it is quite another one. So you got to go over to darkangelmedical.com. You got to get trained. We have training all over the United States. This year we got over 40 classes. So we're going to be we're going to be all over like MRSA. So just want everybody to take a look at the training opportunities and get you a kit, get you the training. They're HSA, FSA eligible. We have our exclusive Kit for Life guarantee. That way, Jennifer Lee just bought a car kit. Wait for it to get here. Thank you much. If you use one of our kits to save a life, your own or someone else's, we'll replace what you have used in that kit absolutely 100% free of charge. That is called our Kit for Life guarantee. So head over to darkangelmedical.com because the time chooses you and it's up to you to be ready. So get you a kit, get trained, and be the difference.
And another thing to bear in mind, folks, I want to kind of toss this in there. If you carry, conceal, or you carry otherwise, if you carry a firearm on a daily basis, I highly recommend you have a kit because odds are good that kit is going to be for you. If you're carrying a firearm, you should have a first aid kit at least close by. I was going to say something else. Somebody asked something, and let me see. I don't remember where it was. Oh, Robin Grogan what was the name of that? It's called the SAS Survival Guide. Let me find it for you. I will post the link. It's on Amazon, but it's a great, absolutely fantastic book. It's one of my favorites to keep in my kit. I'm gonna. Good Lord, come on now.
Sorry, boys, had to say goodnight to Angie.
Hey, not a problem at all, Doc. Not a problem at all. I am going to post this in the chat here. This is the link directly to the one I purchased. It's called the SAS Survival Handbook. Just full of absolutely useful information. And everything from snares to medicinal plants to edible plants to how to build a shelter, basic survival skills. Good book to just keep in your car or keep in your pack. It's available in a pocket-sized edition and a full-size edition. I have both. So I would, Steve says in their book called The Lost Ways. Yeah, but it's a little different. It's like old homeopathic remedies from pioneer days, how to store food, old recipes, pioneer methods for canning and survival. Yeah, that's a good one to have too. And I definitely recommend that. But there are a lot of those books like that. One called like The Old Ways. You can find those, and there's a series of them, and they're just fantastic skills to learn and to know because we live in some pretty uncertain times, and it wouldn't take much to lose the power grid, and then you're going to lose everything. And they're talking about a lot of solar activity over the next few years. And a good solar storm could cripple our power grid for a good period of time. So it's good to know some old skills like how to build a rocket stove in your backyard. You can cook by one. How to make Crisco candles. Crisco candles not only are a good light source, but they provide heat. You can make a Crisco candle out of a can of Crisco lard.
Steve just mentioned this one.
Good book.
Yeah, we both got this one.
Can make a survival candle that also gives off heat, and one of those Crisco candles will last about a month.
There's also another good book to go with that Lost Ways book that we talked about is the Home Apothecary.
There's another one called The Amish Ways that's really good too.
Yeah, this one is kind of like the Amish one. Matter of fact, I think this one was written by Nicole Applin. She's an herbalist, author, scientist, and survival skills consultant. And she's also a wild foods expert, so she knows her stuff. It's a pretty cool book.
Yeah, and for those of you who are not familiar with this, we've on that topic like that, we have done several shows. One of them here recently based on preparedness and some of the stuff that DA and Robbie are going over. So go back into the DAExMachiNation DAExMachina YouTube channel and search those shows, and you're going to glean a lot of great information from those.
Yep.
And we will do more of those type shows here in the future too.
Yeah, those always turn out to be really good shows, really informative shows, and I think people really get a lot out of those.
Because the thing about it is we may live in the information age with the internet, cell phones, and everything, but technology is a fickle mistress, and it can and will fail you at the worst possible time. And if we were to lose the grid, it's not unthinkable either. We could be a cyber attack, it could be a solar storm, or it could be something more nefarious, EMP. We could lose our power grid. Are you prepared to survive without it? And that's a question we've all got to ask ourselves, especially if like older folks who can't get around like they used to, how they're going to get around, how they're going to get their medication, that kind of thing. Always try to keep at least a month's supply of whatever medication you take on hand, because there might come a time when times get lean, you might need to rely on that. Isabel mentioned chickens and eggs. Look at some of the ways that the Amish used to preserve eggs. They could preserve eggs for years without refrigeration. Pretty interesting how they do it too.
Yeah, and I think I've seen it other places before, but I think it's also in the Lost Ways book. There's a thing called a spiral garden where it teaches you how to. I know you've heard of it, DA, but it teaches you how to grow everything that you need. But it's in a very a much smaller footprint than what you would have to spread out.
You'd be amazed how much food you can grow in even a small backyard.
Mm-hmm. So there's things, books like that are invaluable when it comes to stuff like DA's talking about, because it's like I've said, I've always tried to tell my kids, don't count on this. Know how to read a compass, know how to read a map, because what's going to happen if that grid goes down and you can't access this, and you need to get somewhere, you need to get back here, you need to get somewhere safe.
And looking stuff up on the Googles is easy. It's right there at your fingertips. We all do it. But if you don't know how to do something and that grid is gone, you're just not going to know. Not unless you've got old school encyclopedias handy, or if it's a skill that you've got a book to show you how to do. You will never appreciate a printed edition of a book more than when we lose the grid. Another good thing about those books is some of the old native medicines. The Native Americans used to say that the Great Spirit gave us a plant to cure every ailment, and we're pretty much right. I was going to say something else and completely lost my train of thought. But folks, we're past the 2 hour mark, and it's getting pretty late on Robbie's end of things. He's out on the East Coast, so he's an hour ahead of me, and Doc's an hour behind me. So we're in a weird pickle when it comes to time zones.
Yeah.
But we're going to start winding things down. And again, folks, remember, look past the surface. Because a lot of these missing cases, it's easy to brush them off as just being somebody wandered off the beaten path and disappeared. But even when that happens, they generally leave a trace, and tracking dogs will track them. So if you're going out on any of the dark places or in the backwoods or on trails, be careful, keep your head on a swivel, be aware of your surroundings, and don't forget to look up. If you've got your nose buried in a cell phone, it is going to be much easier to get lost. Pay attention to your surroundings. Pay attention to what's going on, and remember, just because we're going out into nature doesn't mean we don't have the right to come home safe. I don't plan on being anything's dinner or coming out of the woods as something else's bowel movement. I'm gonna be the spicy crunchy taco of the bear world, because I'm gonna be a meal it had to earn. Just Ryan, yeah, that freeze effect that hit the Texas grid, those folks were out of power. Back in '87 here in Missouri, we got hit with an ice storm, and we lost power for 2.5 weeks, almost 3 weeks. And we had a bunch of old hurricane lamps. We had wood heat in the house. We just lit the hurricane lanterns, and Dad went out into the shed and got a bunch of pieces of plywood and some 2x4s, and he nailed together a big box with shelves in it, put it on the back porch, and bolted it. I mean, used screws to put it down so somebody couldn't just grab it and walk off with it. Put hinges and a padlock on it, and put all of our perishable food inside it. And it was below zero outside anyway, so just made a homemade fridge. We got through it, and y'all can too. Roxanne says, remember that year. That '87 was bad ice storm here in Missouri. That was bad. Roxanne says, Gray Eagle. Robbie says, yeah, no Redneck Reading Association tomorrow.
Yeah, because somebody said, I'll see y'all tomorrow for that. So that's why I put that up there right quick.
Glad you did. Glad you reminded me. The reason being is Annette and I actually met 2 days after Valentine's Day. So we always celebrate on the 16th for our Valentine's Day. So that's our Valentine's Day. Take her out to dinner and spend some time with her. So no Redneck Reading Association tomorrow night, folks, but we'll be back with y'all on Wednesday. Folks, thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. Remember, hang on to those old books, because you never know when that knowledge is going to come in handy. Get yourself a good med kit, and get yourself something to defend yourself with. If you don't believe in a firearm, get something else. A good walking stick, a good staff, or something like that. But you've got every right to come home safe. And
Lone Wolf Custom Knife.
Lone Wolf Custom Knife is a great way to do that. Protect yourself, be safe, and wherever you go, just be aware of your surroundings. And you never know when the unknown will come looking for you. What does the doc always says? The time chooses you. You can be prepared for all sorts of things, but you never know when it's actually going to happen. So, folks, thank you guys for hanging out with us. Do not forget the 22 a Day Foundation. We lose 22 veterans a day to suicide, and that is 22 too many. It's a subject that's very near and dear to my heart. Reach out to all your friends and family who are first responders. I'm not wearing my 22 a day bracelet today, but I do have my 22 ring on. It's actually kind of twisted on me. Yeah, put that up.
There you go.
Is on. Ring says 22 kill. 22 kill is very similar to the 22 a Day Foundation. It's another organization does the same thing. It's all about promoting mental health among veterans and trying to get 22 down to 0. So reach out to your friends and family who are first responders who've worn a uniform in any capacity, any veteran or still active duty, or no matter what capacity, what uniform they wore. Reach out to them, let them know you're thinking about them, let them know you care about them, because you never know when that "Hey, you awake?" text or "Hey, are you doing okay?" text might be what keeps them back off the edge that day. And just as the T-shirt I'm wearing, this is from the Till Valhalla Project, says, the back of my T-shirt says, "Don't let the hard days win." And I think that's a great sentiment for all of us. Do not let the hard days win, because at least 22 times a day, they do. And let's get 22 down to 0. So, folks, we're going to wind this up with a toast, and it's from an old Irish drinking song. And I'm really proud of this toast. It's one I want to continue to do for a while. Doc, you want to do the toast tonight?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Everybody raise a glass. But since it fell into my lot that I should rise and I should not, I'll gently rise and softly call. Good night and joy be to you all. Good night, y'all. Slancha.
Slancha.
Thank you for joining us. Catch us again Wednesdays and Saturdays on DAExMachina. A special thanks to all our channel members and Patreon supporters. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe.